Hello everyone, welcome back for another episode. Today I will prepare a chicken dish. It's a very simple one, it's called Chicken Marengo. So what does it mean, Marengo? This dish was created by a French chef during the Napoleon War in Italy in June 1800. And to celebrate this victory from Napoleon over the Austrian troops who were in the northern part of Italy, the chef prepared some kind of chicken with tomato and so on and so on. And it's called le poulet de la victoire, it's chicken victory. So this dish was actually somehow copied on the Italian dish, which is called ossobuco. And from there on, it was one of the first dishes where a chef on the battlefield, once again, used ingredients what was available. And he used tomatoes. And since then, this is the introduction of tomatoes in the French cuisine since the French Revolution. So I'm going to show you this dish. It's a very simple one. It's actually stewed chicken with some garlic, some tomatoes, some ingredients. And here we go. And I have a little twist on it, and I will explain you what it is. So let's start with chicken. So you can have a whole chicken, 4 people, whole chicken. It's cut into 8 pieces. What I do, I will brown the chicken first. So a little bit seasoning first. Salt and pepper. Don't over salt, don't over pepper, because you can still rectify your seasoning later. Then I turn on the gas. Olive oil. Olive oil is very much Mediterranean. You can also do this with butter, but butter is different because butter, it's made from cream, which is animal fat. Olive oil is much more flavor. So you can use butter after to add the butter at the end of the dish. So what I will do first, the first process of this dish is to brown the meat. Now, to brown the meat, you can do it one or the other way. One way is you can actually add flour on top of this. This will help to increase the crusting process. Here I will not do it because it's not really necessary, but you can do it. It's up to you. So I will golden brown the chicken pieces. That's the first thing to do. And once this is done, I will add then the other ingredients, onions, celery, and the seasonings. So now, when you brown your pieces of meat, chicken or fish or whatsoever, the heat has to be proportional. If you do it on a very high flame and your pot is extremely warm, what will happen is it actually will have a burning process. What is important in this browning is that you need to have everywhere a nice golden brown coloration, and this here at the bottom will determine the color of the sauce and also taste. It's called sucre de viande. So you need to be gentle in the beginning. Don't go too fast. Don't increase the heat. It will not help. You just need to have time. The particularity when you make a dish, there are times where you can act a little bit brutal, like chopping onions, chopping herbs and so on, but chopping chicken, whatever. But then when it comes to cooking, there you need to take your time, because there are things which are done on a speed, and if you increase the speed, it doesn't help the dish. You will just burn it. So the golden brown coloration. In continental cuisine, any stew you make, chicken stew, beef stew, veal stew, anything, the first process is always to have your elements, your pieces of meat, whatever, to brown them. This is how we start a dish, rather than starting with a gravy and then you add your raw meat in there. Now here we do the opposite. We brown the meat. Once this is browned, we add our, it's called in French, aromat. Aromat means chopped onions, some garlic, chopped tomato. You can add some nice cubes of carrots. You can add other types of vegetables, and you brown them as with the meat. As you can see, the nice golden brown coloration. Now, depending on the dish, you can brown it much more, like really dark brown. This is like for brown beef stew, for example, where you add some, you can add some sugar to caramelize, then you add some vinegar to make a sweet and sour. Here, a nice lightly golden brown coloration. This crust will help the taste of the dish. And as you can see in the bottom here, there is no burning process. There's nothing burnt here. Just take your time. Takes a couple of minutes. Voilà. So, while this is browning, I will prepare my ingredients. So, onions. I will add this into this dish when the pieces are nice colored. Some celery. Celery is a very interesting vegetable because it has a powerful taste. It's slightly bitter and sour, and it's also slightly salty. So it adds a very intense flavor. So don't add too much celery. Here I add a little bit because I want to enhance the taste of this dish. Of course, garlic. Garlic is fantastic because it's used in the whole Mediterranean basin and of course other parts of the world. Without garlic, this world would not be the same. The gastronomic world would be totally different. There are two ingredients we use a lot in cuisine. It's garlic and normally shallots. If you don't have shallots, you can replace them by onions. Garlic and shallots or garlic and onions, this is like a base for many dishes. Here, some tomato paste. So, one more round, you see, just making sure all these pieces are nicely coated. They have to be seared on all the sides. As said, if you flour the pieces, there is no problem with it. What will happen is that the crusting will actually be reinforced because the flour is like a dry element on top of meat, which has its own juices. So the crusting process is very important because when you golden brown crusting, all the juices which are inside the meat, they will remain inside even when they cook in a stew. This is very important. This dish is going to cook approximately between 20 and 30 minutes slowly. So you can chop them thinner, you can have them sliced like this, up to you. I actually like them very much like this, sliced, because the interesting thing is that when you eat the stew later, you have bits and pieces of garlic. And I said, it has a lot of taste and a lot of flavors. Voila, just like this. One more cut like that. This dish, when the chef made it on the battlefield to celebrate his victory of Napoleon, actually after that Napoleon Bonaparte, he had many battles, and every victory was celebrated with this dish. It became a habit. It's like a superstition. That's why. Now here we are, nicely colored, and as you can see here we have this browning effect. This is the caramelization. So if you increase the speed, it will just burn, and we don't want to have that. Now I will add my onions. The quantity of onions really depends on you. You can add a lot, you can add a little bit. Here, this is one big onion sliced. I think it's enough. Some celery. My garlic. And as I said, garlic, once again, you can add more, you can add less. You don't have to, but this is a very flavorful element. So what I'm going to do now, your chicken is golden brown color. Now we are adding these aromas, onions, celery, and so on. Allow it 2-3 minutes, and the vegetables will become transparent. In French we say translucide. This culinary term is called suer. Suer means to sweat. So when you are, it's not really sauté, because sauté, the temperature is very high, and it's like an intensive golden brown coloration. Here, no need to golden brown coloration the onions. We just need to sweat them to release the juices. This takes a couple of minutes, gently. Also, what is important is the proportion of the pot with the amount of elements you put inside. If I take a smaller pot and I work in 8, that's not good, because what I would like to do, the golden brown coloration of the meat and the sweating of the vegetables, it cannot happen in a narrow pot. You have to have a pot which is proportional to the quantity of food you're having there. If I take a big pot with this same quantity of meat, that's also not good, because then there is too much air coming inside, and you cannot sweat your elements. It will dry out and evaporate too much. I want to keep something inside. You see, by sweating, you can see that some of the vegetables are becoming shiny and not transparent, but it's called translucide. It means they are now slowly to release their juices. So 2-3 more minutes. Okay, here we are. Now, what are we going to do? The next step is to have some tomato concentrate. This is for a little bit flavor, but more for the color. When you add tomato paste in anything you're doing, this tomato paste needs to cook. Don't add tomato paste at the end of, for example, a sauce. This is acidic. It's very acidic. So when you add tomato paste, you can or you cannot add some sugar. But here I will not add sugar, I will add something else. This is my twist for this recipe. So I have reached this stage. I will add some tomato paste. And then you have to mix everything, right? So that just coat, you know. You have to mix all these things so that this tomato paste goes everywhere, and it has to cook a couple of minutes, again without burning anything in the bottom of the pot. All these here, this is caramelization of the pieces of chicken and so on. Voila. So now, once we've done this, what we need to do in French cuisine, when they have reached this stage, coloration of the meat, aromats, sweating together, tomato paste, the flavoring elements, normally what I do in French cuisine, little bit wine, white wine. Here I will not use wine, I will use substitutes. So as a substitute for wine, you can add different things. You can add, I will use some apple juice. You can use grapefruit juice, and you can use also grape juice, not wine. Little bit apple juice. I will add, this is the twist, little bit grapefruit juice, not too much. Grapefruit juice is interesting because it has flavors, it's tasty, but it's not as acidic as lemon. Lemon is very, very intense. And some orange juice. Also, not too much. These, cook it for like 1 minute. In French, this culinary term in French is called déglacé. Déglacé means coloration and so on and so on. You're adding a liquid. Liquid means you're adding an alcohol for flaming, or a wine, or a vinegar to deglaze, and then you add your stock. Just mix it. All right. Now we will add fresh chopped tomatoes. So here I have like 3 big nice tomatoes. Just cut them up like this because it will cook for 20-30 minutes and these tomatoes will remain chunky. It's not a smooth sauce. This is a chunky thing. So tomatoes. And then again, the question now is how much chicken broth should I add here? It's very easy. I have explained it already one time. Is that the amount of meat you have in the pot, amount of meat, 1 finger above. 1 finger above, it's enough. So here I will show you that to you. So this is chicken broth. This is my pot with all the things here. And you see the chicken pieces here. So I will add now my broth. Because this dish is a stew. It's not a dry dish. That means a stew means something which is cooked in broth. I will start like this. This is enough to start. So something which is cooked in broth, it has to remain juicy. Voilà. Now I will add some other elements to flavor it. Some rosemary sprig. So like this amount is enough. Just leave it whole. It has a lot of flavors. If you don't have fresh, you can use dry, no problem. But dry herbs, be careful because dry herbs are more bitter. They're very bitter. So if you add a lot of it, this bitterness will come back. It cannot disappear. So you just have to have a little bit. This is called herbe de Provence. It's mixed herbs, thyme, rosemary. Just a little bit. Not too much. Then I add a little bit salt and pepper. Not too much. This is not a spicy dish. You can use a little bit paprika powder, a pinch of cayenne pepper, but just a little bit, because as I said, this is not a spicy dish. This is a typical Mediterranean dish coming from southern France, and then it was created there in Italy. They have a lot of common things there. As I said in the beginning, this dish is based on ossobuco. Ossobuco with veal, it's the shank of the veal which is cut in slices, so you have a piece of bone with meat around. The way of preparing, it's exactly the same as this one. Except this one was created by a French chef on a battlefield called Marengo. That's why the name is there. So here we are. So now, what we need to do, we are going to cover this and cook it. Slowly. I will put a lid, and this will cook for 20 minutes in the beginning. All right, so this dish now, the chicken has been cooking for like 20-25 minutes, slowly. When you cook it slowly, it's called simmering. Simmering. Let's look how it looks. I think it looks very nice. As you can see, it's still very juicy, right? But because we are simmering, it means covered with a lid, the juices are remaining inside. What you can do for this dish, when you come to the end, slowly reaching the end, you can actually remove the lid and evaporate somehow the sauce. Like it will reduce it a little bit, but still, considering that this is a stew, it's a juicy dish. And as you can see, all these pieces of tomato, they are cooked, but this is a chunky sauce. All right. Now, I will leave it like this. And what I will prepare now, I will prepare the garnish for this. For the garnish, you need some button mushroom. Here, these are canned mushrooms. You can also use, of course, fresh mushrooms. You can use fresh, like Paris mushrooms, small ones, or even the bigger ones, which you slice them up. There is another kind of mushroom. It's called Rosé de Paris. They are like Paris mushrooms, but the skin outside is brown. They are like substitutes for ceps. Ceps is a very elegant and noble mushroom, also very expensive and very rare. So you can use cans. Cans is very nice. It just depends how you prepare it. So here I have some onions which are cut like this for garnish. You can use those type of onions or eventually button onions. It's called in French oignon grelot, French. I will both of these saute them off slightly, not too much golden brown coloration, just make them nicely sweat. This is the garnish of this stew. So once this is cooked, a little bit reduced, I will put that in a dish and the garnish goes on top. Let's start. Teflon pan. So to saute this off, I will use a little bit olive oil to start the sauteing. And then when I reach like half turn, I will start with the onions because the onions are raw. These ones, because they are canned, they're of course cooked. It means blanched. I will saute these onions first. I will add the mushrooms and then I will add a pinch of fresh butter just to give this creamy taste. Don't add cream, just a touch of butter. Right, let's start. Little bit olive oil, not too much. So the thing you should know about olive oil, when you cook with olive oil, you're going to coloring something, don't use extra virgin olive oil because extra virgin is from cold press. Means when you heat this olive oil, it becomes totally bitter and sour. It's not good. Extra virgin oil is fantastic to use as a finishing touch. You have a fish grilled in the oven, before serving you add a touch of olive oil, extra virgin. So when you cook with olive oil, just take the normal one. Because also there is a difference in cost. Extra virgin is more expensive than the normal olive oil. So here, olive oil. And what you do, add some of these onions. Not too much. Depends how many people. You see? And I hope you hear the noise. This is the process of searing. So there is a contact with a pan which is hot, olive oil. So there is a matière grasse. It can be clarified butter, it can be butter, it can be olive oil, it can be another type of oil. The main thing at first is to have this heat. If you don't have heat and you put your things, carrots, courgette, some sliced vegetable, they will start to release the juices and boil. What you want is the searing process. You see? This is a very beautiful noise. In French cuisine, we have thousands of culinary terms. This term, specifically for what you hear the noise, it's called faire chanter la viande, faire chanter les légumes. It means to make them sing. They are singing right now. So there is a little bit poesy when you cook, yeah? Voilà, very nice. So again, proportion, the size of the pan, the amount of onions, the heat, they're all proportional. If I take a huge pan with a little bit onion, it doesn't make any sense. So you need to have a balance there. And then the magical thing is, when you are at home, nobody sees you, no witness, you do like this. And you can train like this, it's very funny. Just up, 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 very dry. Don't, just you take a pan, slightly bend it towards the opposite, not like this, always to the opposite of you. Why? Because when you do this movement, you are actually tossing, it can be vegetables like spinach, broccoli, anything. Just by tossing like this, the coloration goes everywhere. If you don't do that, you just leave it like this, the coloration only happens on one side, not on the other side. So you want to have them on both sides, right? Once I have reached golden brown coloration everywhere, onions, actually, they are sweet. You have different kinds of onions. The red onions, when you cook them like this and you keep them crispy, they are sweet in taste, which goes very well with this dish. Don't forget, in this dish I have added a little bit apple juice, orange juice, and grapefruit juice. Grapefruit juice is a little bit less sweety, but this has a sweety approach because tomatoes are also sweet when you cook them. I will add some mushroom and just toss them like this, right? I said these mushrooms are already cooked. If you have fresh mushroom, you cook them in less than 1 minute. You can cook them long time, but that means they will release all the juices and you lose the effect of the mushroom taste. Now, this is nearly finished. What I will do, I'll take some parsley, just a little bit, and actually what you can do, in French we call this ciseler. Ciseler means you take a herb, any herb, chives, parsley, basil, and you give it one cut. This is called ciseler. And because I do that, I will add it into my garnish at the very last before using it for decoration. Now, what goes very well with this dish is tarragon, estragon. We don't have a very interesting substitute for tarragon, parsley. Parsley is fantastic. So here, like this, voila. Close the gas and you do like this. And the smells of this parsley is like smell from the garden. Voila. Garnish is ready. The chicken stew is ready. As you can see, this is a very juicy dish. I repeat one more time. If there is no sauce, then it becomes dry. This sauce, this dish normally you have garnishings with it. So here I will dress it in a nice plate. This goes on top as garnish, and then you can have it with several different starch. You can have mashed potato, you can have fries. Here I have prepared some nice roast potato wedges. Very simple, just cut your potatoes with skin, toss them in some olive oil, some rosemary, some garlic, put them on a tray and bake them for like 25-35 minutes in an oven, 170 degrees max. This goes very well. It's like a roast potato going with this dish. In Italy, for example, with this kind of dish, they would have pasta, tagliatelle, pappardelle, or eventually you can have polenta. Creamy polenta looks like mashed potato, but it's a different thing. It's also cooked in broth, etc. Or risotto. Ossobuco comes with risotto. So this dish has a lot of connection with Italy. It was prepared in Italy, but as I said, this was the first time tomatoes were used in this dish. Since that famous day, tomatoes are being used in French cuisines. Before that, they used very little or none. So this is actually a very big thing in French cuisine. So now, let me dress this one up. So, take a nice bowl. You can also use boneless meat, but what is very interesting with meat that has bones is just more tasty, because any meat that is a round bone, ossobuco or chicken with bone and skin, it's more tasty and it can cook longer. That means if you cook something for 10 minutes, it has a different flavor. If you cook something for half an hour with bone, it's just more flavorful. You see, nice chunky sauce. Now some garnish, so some mushroom on top. And I wish you good appetite. Bon appétit.